There you go. We've got Stuart Little and Kristin Harper talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and sales and being able to leverage these tools. And every time we have a talk about this, it starts to evolve a lot more. And we started a conversation even before the call, and I said, look, we have to stop this conversation and get onto the call, because the stuff that we are both seeing, and probably more, Stuart, some of the stuff that you've been involved in more recently, it is sort of quite mind-blowing what we can do. And even in the 10 minutes that we've spoken, I'm already writing stuff down and going, what can I start to implement with my clients and what I'm doing? Stuart, good to see you again, buddy. Let's start where we left off, because that conversation was going down quite a good track there.
Yeah. Well, look, it's good to be back. This, as you quite rightly say, this subject is evolving, and I don't think it's going anywhere near the pace of the change of the technology, which is mind blowing for me. But even so, here we are, another week down the line, and it's just great to be learning. I've been fortunate enough this week to be part of a workshop which was specifically focused on AI and sales, and there's some real incredible information shared there. What I loved about it more than anything is it was a practical demonstration of what the reality is today. It wasn't necessarily a huge deep dive into the topic. This is just showing where that shortfall. I mean, we talked about this, that 22% of people are using AI in some capacity if we look at sales as a whole, and then we've got this big gulf, which is really yet to take it on board. When I approached that subject, because I asked the question directly of the specialist, and what his opinion was, is that there's a kind of intake of breath happening at the moment in respect of how this can be more useful for an organization. Clearly, they see benefit. There's no question that there's benefit for both the business and the clients that they're serving. But ultimately, it comes down to, is there technology enabled to actually incorporate this as part of the process? And do they have a clarity of understanding right through the leadership stack as to what it's going to do for them? Because as great as it is to enable your sales team fully with this tech, if they don't have clarity, and I mean absolute clarity in respect of what it's going to do for them and how they can create these, these wins, then it's going to just be a disaster, because what you get is
they're not going to they're not going to know how to use it, so they'll start going down a rabbit hole and go, well, this is not working for me because of these reasons here. If they haven't had their right training, then they're not going to leverage it. They're not going to be able to leverage it to their advantage. And generally, in my experience, with working with salespeople, people are like, okay, if this is too hard, I'm just going to leave it.
Well, look, there's the interesting part about this, right? It's kind of twofold. What we've got here is over the COVID years, and we're now coming kind of past that, right? But if you look at the last few years, and that's 2, 3, 4 years now, what we've got is this mass adoption of people, because there was massive demand and getting people to deal with client inquiries because they were really plentiful, and it was in some cases easier, and I'm going to say that in inverted commas, to get clients across the line and get them parting with their cash to actually spend and kind of invest in various products and services and projects, etc. That's great. So what we've now got coming out of that, during that time, I don't know how intensive training was and how principles and standard process was actually being followed, and how much of that was relevant, because it was just more like, let's get stuff done and not necessarily worry about that. Now, I'm not suggesting that every business thought like that, but a lot of businesses clearly have thought like that, because what we've now identifying is there's a gulf in respect of the training and understanding. But what we've now got is a whole also flanking this whole thing is this fundamental shift in technology that's now providing us with opportunity at a very fast pace. So, these same teams now have a gulf forming where they're missing that kind of knowledge and understanding in the base understanding of what sales and what that means. Because they're now being asked to do more involved things that require more talent and more skills, more expertise.
And you think with this work from home thing, it's really hard to, especially if you're in a sales team, and look at sales team. Generally, when you're in together, I was talking to a client about this the other day, it's about celebrating those wins. And you're talking about how you win these deals, and basically we're getting the team to share, hey, tell us about this, dear. What was the conversation? This is where the other team members are going to learn,
Yes.
is being around others that are talking about that. So I think there's another challenge of that working from home, because you rightly said it. When people working from home, yes, there were lots of cool things happening, like deals and stuff like that happening. But
Yeah.
what's happening is that when people at home by themselves, they're going to learn at the rate of what they're comfortable with. And generally,
Yes.
when you're around with a team, and I find when I'm with a team, I actually work better because I just go and ask questions. I go, hey, how do I do this? I
Yeah.
go and have a look. I'm more of a see than do.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think from a sales point of view, it'd be more challenging if you still got these work from home type of
yeah.
roles where they're only going to learn as quick as they can because they don't have other people around them doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a certain mindset to be proactive in respect of learning, full stop, but also understanding where those communities that they can actually leverage are. This is why clearly I've been a big advocate for the online space from that perspective, and really utilizing it to build community concepts through there. But you're right, that ability to really nut out a problem around a table, and you can see other people's ability
Get on the
to deal
whiteboard,
with
eh?
that really works, and that's really what the benefit is that combination of strengths coming together to solve a problem. And quite frankly, that's clear gold for clients too. If clients are witness to this, and be it that they're seeing it through social media channels, and they see the effort and management that goes into some of this stuff to get results for people, that's when they truly understand what the value proposition that a business is providing, right?
It's that penny drop, isn't it? So if they
Yeah.
see that and go, shit, this actually works. I've heard it
I
all
mean,
about it, but now that I start
it's
working in my own business, it makes a big difference. So
it's not always pretty. The thing about it is that clearly there's the benefit though is getting to the end result, and then there's a deeper understanding, because I think everyone's then invested in it, and that's interesting. But look, we're talking just in more about the AI side of it, because the practical stuff that I've been witness to kind of this week, and how it can functionally work, is that what we've got is the biggest challenges around kind of these administration tasks, which ultimately take salespeople away from their day-to-day wins that they and working with clients in a more strategic way.
Typically your CRM.
Yeah.
And updating information. And as you know, salespeople hate doing that shit.
Yeah, they really
I
do.
want to be out selling, rather than sitting there, buddy, keying all the stuff in there.
Look, for me, it's twofold. There needs to be some kind of accountability for that in respect of like that's a KPI. Interestingly, this is what some of the things that came up. So, and when we're talking about the mood of the sales leader, and we talked about that report, where there's this thing that came out with remuneration being the number one thing that salespeople are concerned about. Development was the middle thing, and I'm talking about business development, but also personal development. And then there was this thing about business culture, right? Interestingly, there's a guy in the room, Michael, who is doing a great, in fact, an exceptional job of this in respect of his team. But what he showed was how they're investing in the development side, and understanding that their team are measured in different ways. They're not simply measured on the end outcome. Clearly, that's important to the business to grow. But what he's been very mindful of it is that if you develop the people so they understand what these new tools can deliver, how it works, what it can do, how it can engage differently, what you suddenly get is a more involved culture, which is what people are craving.
More engaged culture.
For sure, but it starts to define the culture as well, right? It shows that the practices you do and the stuff you do and how you work then becomes something which is embedded in those and the values that you share. By default, once you have those two things kind of done, the clients then see it and they go, well, that resonates with me. That's something I want to see. That's something I can engage with. In respect of that, then the business presents itself, and then it's up to you to close it clearly and do the appropriate stuff around that. But at the end of the day, that remuneration for both the business and the individual takes care of itself. So I think the challenge here is a lot of people just focus on that remuneration side and say, how do we pay people more money, or how do let's just crack the whip and get people selling more and get
the
in front
KPIs
of people.
aren't just the numbers that we get. The KPIs are, have you done your learning? Have you done stuff like this? How are we helping you get to this point from an emotional intelligence point of view? Sitting down and having those conversations around, you're looking at all sort of angles and areas of the person that you're working with to get the best out of them, which is the right way to go. But having the KPIs around holistic KPIs, if that makes sense, rather than just based on the numbers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, I'm realist in respect of the numbers being important in respect to the success of anything. But at the end of the day, if you kind of like I say,
If the
if you
head
take
and the
care of
heart are
these,
in the right place, if the head and the heart in the right place,
yeah,
you're enjoying your role, you're having the right conversations, the money and all that comes along, the deals come along. If you stick with the sales process and the things that you need to do, all of that other stuff will happen.
yeah. Well,
Typically, and I know we've sort of probably both seen it, is that you've had sales managers and sales leaders that go, hit your fucking number, you got to do this, you have to do that. And what that does, it creates friction for a lot of salespeople, is that if I don't do this, I'm not going to get paid. And if I don't do this, so it becomes more out of fear versus more out of, hey, I want to sit down in front of my buddy client that I love working with. And rather than me going, buddy, hey, Stuart, how's the week going? Hey, look, we've come up with this. It becomes a bit more desperate. It's a bit more, okay, sure. So we've got this deal and we sort of need to close, and it really does change that dynamic. And I think for some people, if you haven't been seasoned or if you haven't done it long enough, people can find that sort of quite intimidating. So there's a real fine balance, I think the way that he's doing this that sounds really good though, because it's there's a real change of culture that sort of needs to happen, I think.
Yeah, but for me, clearly there's a deeper thing in respect to the industry he's in, which is he's in the packaging industry. It can be considered quite a dry subject, but the way it's being approached is very different, and is effectively reinventing how people view that. And that for me is taking a completely different viewpoint for what it is that people are really looking for from their solutions, and then bringing that really holistically through everything that they do. It's very interesting change, and it's reaping the rewards clearly. So that's awesome. What just to pick up on your point though, what I think is that if you do measure things in the wrong way, you drive the wrong behavior, and that's the thing that gets rewarded. And it's quite a weird paradigm, because what you get is this, this kind of counterculture is actually the thing that's rewarded, rather than building something that's got longer term success.
But it goes back to, if they haven't done, sorry to cut you off, it goes back to if you've learned that way. And like, I'll give an example of as a father.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes the way that I react to my boys, my partner, she'll be like, you sound like your old man, you sound like your dad. Just in reacting that way. And it's not that I want to do that, and I work hard as a father to be the best I can, and not react and all those sort of things. But it's one of those things, if you've learned that way your whole life, or your whole sort of sales life, it's about identifying, okay, I need to work on this, and then going, where do I sort of get the help? So it's, if you've got leaders and the sales leaders and all that, they come train their guys, and they're so used to having, okay, if I can hit your numbers, it's changing that. It's number one, that acceptance of, shit, I need to change the way that I'm leading my people here. And then secondly, I've got to go get that help, and I've got to want to get that help, and then I can help the people that I'm working with, my sales team, to sort of take that same approach. Because if you don't get that from the leaders, it's really hard for the salespeople, and people generally go back to what they know. And if it's a lot of sales managers or a lot of sales leaders, it'll be like, hit your fucking numbers. We've got this to do. Where is it? Where are we going to find it? It gets back it gets back to that bloody hustle mode and hustle mentality of, shit, we need to close it. We need to close these deals. And it's sort of finding that balance, eh?
Yeah, and look, and I'm not suggesting it's an overnight fix either. And the tools that we now have access to can help. I think what we'll do is we'll cover some of this in the next session, because I think, like, if we just give some people some clarity on what's, like, the stuff you can do today, because as this guy said, AI is as the worst it's going to get today, right? So it's only improving, and that's its beauty, is that it's in effect of, it's reflecting on itself all the time. Unlike any other real software requires input from other people to do that, the software kind of has this inherent ability to improve of what's going on. So I'm loving that, because of the inputs that it's given from various sources. So I think that from that perspective, we've got an exciting time ahead of us, no question. But yeah, it's relevant to sales right now, and those that are skirting the edges of it, try and look a bit deeper, because it's going to be very relevant to everything that we do going forward, quite frankly.
God, imagine our wives doing that, like just sort of evolving and moving forward like that at a real rapid rate.
Yeah, well, like it's inevitable, right? Like it's like this is just one piece of the pie, but ultimately it's a tool there for everybody to use to be more productive if they understand it. Like just throwing it at your sales team and hoping it's going to stick is just really not the result. And quite frankly, I've seen that with LinkedIn and the other platforms that I've been part of, certainly. And when you get that structure, it's a far more it's far more understood in respect of what the inputs and the outputs are going to be. So you just got to be clear about that. But yeah,
and I think on our next session as well. So as a son, I've just taken on a client. So some of the strategies and things that we'll start talking about, I'll start implementing with them as well, and just seeing how those sort of dynamics sort of change. And already spoken to the leader about how we could potentially do that, but I'll use that as a wee bit of a test case over the sort of next coming months, and we'll just see. I won't obviously name who they are, but we'll sort of talk about how it's working, what the challenges are with the team, and use this as a wee bit of a test case as well.
Yeah. But it looks good. All right. I look forward to it. All right. Till next time, eh?
See you, mate.
All right. Take it easy.